Hey, welcome back to the All About Pigeons podcast. This week we're doing another one of our compilation episodes where we take some of our favorite conversations on a specific topic and put them all together in one place. If you're interested in racing pigeons, whether you're just getting started or you've been racing for years, this episode is something for you. We're going to cover youth programs, modern technology, long distance competition, loft design, and how local racing pigeon clubs operate. So let's get started. First is my conversation with Mike Netsky. We talk about 4-H pigeon racing and how introducing young people to the sport helps keep the hobby alive for future generations. I want to invite all our listeners to something we've been doing called the All About Pigeons Lounge. Every other Thursday, starting at 6 p.m. Utah time, we open up a casual Zoom hangout for pigeon people from all corners of the hobby: rollers, racing, fancy breeds, or even if you're just getting started with pigeons. People have been joining from all over the country and around the world. We just sit back, relax, and talk pigeons. It feels a lot like standing around someone's loft or talking birds at a pigeon show. There's a ton of information that gets shared between fanciers. People bring up ideas, techniques, and little things they've tried in their own lofts that you might have never thought of before. It gives you new things to consider and try with your own setup. One of the really cool parts is seeing different parts of the hobby connect. Roller flyers, racing flyers, and fancy breeders all sharing ideas and experiences together. The lounge opens at 6 p.m. and usually goes for a few hours. You can stop in whenever you want, hang out for as long as you'd like, and head out whenever you're ready. You can find the Zoom link and the details on the All About Pigeons podcast Facebook page or at pigeonpod.com. We'd love to see you there. Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Philip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds and this ancient hobby. Today we have with us Mike Netsky, and we're going to learn all about pigeon racing in 4-H. So, Mike, thanks so much for coming on and talking with us.
You're welcome, and this is one of my favorite subjects.
Let's get a little bit of background on you and pigeons and how that all got started.
Okay, when I was about 9 or 10, I did a book report on homing pigeons. Was fascinated by them and asked my parents, can I get a pair? And of course they said no. But I always worked for everything I bought, so to speak. So I went to Siegel's on my bicycle. Siegel's was in an Elston in Chicago on my bicycle when I was about 9 or 10 and bought a water and bought a feeder, something like that. Anyhow, somehow I got a pair of pigeons. Okay. And I made a little loft. I had a little loft that I was making, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So I was about 9 or 10 years old and I flew them, but I didn't race or anything like that. I didn't know anything about that. And we had to move and I couldn't take my pigeons with me. So 65 years later, when I got up to Michigan without pigeons, since I hadn't had any for 65 years, I said, hey, I'd like them pigeons again. And I checked to see where the closest, uh, come on, Mike, the closest club was, and it was about 150 miles to the south. I'm way, way, way up in northern Michigan, near the Mackinac Bridge. Anyhow, so I said, well, if I can't join the club because it's too far away, what if I don't start? Why don't I start my own club? And who the heck would be better for me to beat but kids? So I went to the 4-H coordinator in Emmett County and said, uh, I'd like to start a racing pigeon club. She said, what's that? We've never had that before. I never heard of that, which most people have never heard of racing pigeons. And I said, well, we're going to start it. And that's the story. And I'm sticking to it. We arranged for a meeting at the fairgrounds one evening. And we had probably about 10 or 15 people that showed up, kids and adults. And I explained to them what I wanted to do and what I thought the birds could do and stuff like that. And that was that. So we had a few people, a few families that signed up. That was the beginning.
Oh, that's interesting. So you went directly right to the 4-H, hit them with pigeon racing. Were they already doing like showmanship and confirmation with pigeons and stuff?
No, they did nothing. They did nothing with pigeons. There were no pigeons there at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
So they were doing nothing at all with pigeons, and our club started the first now showing, flying, and many other things.
Okay. So now they are doing like the showmanship and confirmation and all that as well now through there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Really
Okay.
excited about that.
Okay. Is that separate from what you're doing with the racing, or is that a part of what you're doing with the racing?
It's separate, but it's part of it. Kids, same families. It's just a different aspect of what they're doing.
Hmm.
They love the birds. They have their own birds, their own lofts. They do their own breeding, and but this is something they love their ribbons and the excitement that goes with this. Most of the kids now in our group are under 12. Some of them in other groups that we've had, they were older, 16, 17, etc. But you have to be out of 4-H when you're 18, I believe. But that doesn't shouldn't stop some of the people.
You're doing this through your own kind of club right now. Is it like a AU club also?
We do encourage the kids once they've joined our club, whether they want to be 4-H or not. We do encourage them to join AU for any number of reasons. AU has wonderful youth races that the kids can enter, but they have to be AU members. And they can enter they can be a member as a family, or they can be a member, a single uh, junior.
Okay. Are you competing with any other race clubs in your area?
No, we're not. We have our own races among ourselves. Um, we sponsored for 3 years in a row. We sponsored a one loft race for kids from all over the country, where they would send us a bird, one bird per family, no, per kid, and we in September, I believe, we would have a race 200 miles away from Grand Rapids, Michigan, back to Petoskey. But there was just so much work for me that I couldn't do that anymore. So we gave that up. But still, it was fun. We had people from the community come watching the birds arrive and
Yeah,
potluck and all that kind of good stuff.
that's awesome. So that's a pretty good turnout. Would you say you had a dozen or so people show up on just your first announcement about even doing this?
Oh, it's more than a dozen, but yeah, because we had not only had the community, because we advertised it in because the local newspaper, they had newspapers at that time. Um, they they publicized it, so we got a lot of the public that had never even heard of pigeons, racing pigeons, and of course our own club, which we have right now we have over 50 participants.
That's a pretty good turnout. Is it pretty easy to get kids once they see the pigeons and once they hear about what they do? Are they pretty hooked on it at that point, or is there anything else that you're really trying to bring them in with?
When their family shows interest, and we have plenty of places that they can see the birds, etc., because we do Fourth of July parades, we do the county fairs, etc., etc., senior facilities, libraries. Anyhow, when they see the birds and they want more information, I'll invite them to come to see my birds. And usually I have around 60 to 75 birds just hanging around. So if there's babies, always they got to have the kids and the adults have to have the babies in their hand. They also have to hold the birds. Right now, that's really gets them started.
Yeah.
While they're here, I explain to them about feeding, about the loft, about where to place their loft, about water, about any simple, they're all simple things. But I think I got over expressed to the parents and the kids how simple this is and how inexpensive it is compared to horses and cows and stuff like that.
Right. I was gonna say, so I imagine that when you're telling the kids this and the parents in the background being like, oh man, I gotta build a loft, I gotta go buy all this feed and stuff. How do you get the parents on board with this? Because that's really where it comes down to.
How to get the parents on board. We have loaner lofts. Okay, that we,
Oh,
yeah, 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 we have loaner lofts. So
nice.
we have a 3 by 3, for instance, that one of our kids found a skylight at the side of the road, and we turned that into a loft, a 3 by 3 by 3. We built 4 by 4 lofts. We have a number of loaner lofts that we have for the kids, or if they want to build their own, I'll be glad to help them. If they know how to do it themselves, I'll give them directions on how to do that. And the placement of the loft is very important. I will never let them place the loft themselves. I always want it to face a certain direction. I want this, this, and this, and I'll go to their house and make sure it's all done.
Okay. And what is it with the placement? Is it something with the sun or where they're coming back from on the race?
I love to have the aviary facing south.
Okay, yep.
I love to have the aviary facing south. Oh, the most important thing is I want them to have the loft where they can see it.
All right.
I mean, it's like roses. All right, sometimes you have to put your roses in the shade in order to see it. But if you can't see them, then why have them? So, that's really what it is with pigeons. I want to make sure they can see them out of their bedroom windows or the breakfast table. So we managed to have the lofts, in a sense, the aviary facing south and in a location where they can see them.
Okay. Have you had a lot of kids really jump into it and build some pretty decent sized permanent lofts?
Yeah, we have a family of 9 kids. They took an old dairy barn and they made part of it the inside a loft, and the outside they put a big aviary.
Oh,
And in fact, I saw, yeah. So yeah, that those were our first family. Actually, they didn't make it to the first meeting, but they the family came to my living room and we talked about it a long time.
so some of the aspects of pigeon racing can get kind of technical, and you're dealing with younger kids. If we're talking about, you're trying to explain velocity or even just some of the feeding and breeding and stuff like that. So how do you break that down for the younger ones to not overwhelm them?
I find it's not complicated, but they can get so much out of it. When you're talking about calculations, you're talking about weather, you're talking about chemistry, you're talking about these, they can get so much educational value from that. Little by little, little by little. For instance, when they come to my house, I say, the reason this aviary is pointed this way is because of I want the sun, and they like to be out in the sun. The reason I feed them a certain amount is because I don't want to overfeed them. And I tell them, well, 5 minutes, what they can eat in 5 minutes, 10 at the most, is all you want to give them. You don't want to overfeed them. And they'll look, and some of the parents will say, but but they seem starving. These poor birds are starving. Well, that's okay. They're not starving. They're not starving. But so it's little by little. As far as the races, most of the time I or one of the parents take the birds down the road for training. We take all the birds, then they fly back to their individual lofts. Seagulls, anyhow, arrange for us to get clocks. So we all have clocks, which makes it nice. And I don't know how to use it. No, well, the parents are pretty good with that. And some of the kids are pretty good with that too.
Okay, so are you guys using the new digital ones?
Yeah, yeah. When we started out, we used the wind-up clocks. That was a mistake, sort of, because in order to use a wind-up clock and register your birds, that's one major piece of time, another piece of time going, to the registration, coming back. They have to be home in order to clock in their birds, take the counter mark off. And these families have to balance their time. There's so much going on. And the clocks were, I mean, a really, really nice feature. And we have it where we can all see each other's coming in, and which is nice. And when they beat me, they go, ah.
Yeah, I think that's like what everybody likes about that is you can all see each other's stuff coming in now with those things.
Yeah, yeah.
How often are you guys getting together and having meetings?
We have our meetings once a month. Some of them are potlucks. Some of them are not, but we have refreshments. Of course, no liquor at all. And the nice part about our meetings is that what I heard that years and years and years ago, what adult meetings were like. They were friendly, they weren't competitive. They were you joked. But and our meetings are friendly and even though there's some competition, it's not like that's it. It's not like a cutthroat thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of all the families and the kids, I believe, really do everything together. They interact together. That's in a nice way.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a really good race club right there. I like that.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like you're really active, especially with, getting them set up, showing them how you do your loft. Are there other members of the race club that do you guys have some sort of like a mentorship program that you can kind of pair kids up with to kind of
Sure.
show them the
Well,
ropes a little bit?
first of all, believe it or not, the ropes are easy. I mean, the training takes a little bit more. And teach them how to train. We give them baskets so they can use the baskets. It's really not that complicated, I don't think. Sure, it's complicated if you want to win $1 million somewhere, maybe, but that's not us, okay? We want the birds to be healthy for sure. Yeah, be healthy.
So what are the other benefits for the members who are joining with the AU that are in the club?
Good question. The AU, as you probably know, has a convention once a year in various cities. Some of our kids have participated in that convention. One of them made a PowerPoint presentation and took it to the convention where she, a fourth grader, presented it at the banquet to about 70 adults. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay. It goes out. There's other people that have. So the AU, back to the AU. So that was the convention. Oh, also something that's really important for our conventions, for the convention, is the youth race. The kids can send their birds, young birds, to somebody in that particular city or where the convention is, and he or she handles the birds and trains them. And then there's the youth race, which is somewhere between 150 and 200 miles every year. Two of our kids have won it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, 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 yeah. Won the Washington, D.C. race during COVID. Unfortunately, I mean, it wasn't the convention. They didn't have the convention, but they had the race. And 2 years ago, I guess it was 2 years ago, one of our kids won the Orlando race. Okay. And the AU, the next year, they sponsored the parents or parent and the kid to come to the convention and all that kind of good stuff. Unfortunately, it wasn't in Hawaii, but still.
Right. Maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year, right?
That's the one you want to get to for sure. As far as keeping them engaged kind of throughout the racing season, you guys are still meeting monthly.
We try, yes.
Now you got the breeding season and stuff like that. Is it just through the meeting you guys are always staying in touch with each other and the meetings are kind of the glue that holds it all year?
And we use emails a lot. I send out at least two or three emails a week, and they come back and people talk about their birds or different things that are going on. Facebook, other people other than me know how to use it.
Has there ever been one story that really stands out from your experience with all these kids of one that really took to it or excelled with it?
Well, the fourth grader and her younger brother, actually her older brother won that Washington D.C. race that I was telling you about. But the younger brother and the fourth grader, the younger brother is second grade, they did a big presentation at their school where they had the whole school outside, and they explained all about the birds, stuff like that. Now we also have a traveling loft that we built it on a trailer. Okay. And it's like a regular loft with an aviary and steps where you can walk up to and all this kind of stuff. And the birds were there. We flew the birds for the kids. And we always take that to our events. And the kids' parents can hold the birds. At our 4th of July parade, that we go to a number of them. When we go we take the traveling loft through the parade. Of course, we have many birds that the kids are throwing off the balcony of the off the traveling loft, and we have a bunch of kids and parents that walk behind or in front of the float, our float, so to speak, which is the traveling, and they're letting the parents, letting the thousands of people hold the birds, and once in a while they let them go, and you're not allowed to throw candy in the parade, okay, because people, but you can throw birds. So we throw birds.
Oh, that's great.
It,
Yeah, and
it
what a
is
great
great.
way to promote right there. I mean, I'm sure you probably get the question of, oh no, are they gonna be okay? Right? I mean, do you have to explain to everybody that they're gonna come home?
The kids explain all that they'll all go back to their loft or other people's loft. Yeah, and they're there already in 5 minutes and stuff like that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Every time I do whenever I do a release with my bird, it's always the same thing. And you gotta, it's okay. That I can never beat them home. I don't, they don't gotta stop for anything. They can just, they beeline. So yeah, that's a great way to just,
Even that 200-mile race from Grand Rapids, the birds don't stop at McDonald's or the rest stops. They keep flying. Now, something else. Oh yeah, yeah, very important.
Mhm.
Very, very important. At the fair and some of our other events that are like fairs, this is a whatever it is. This is a piece of paper that we include. Let's start again. You can send a message by pigeon to anyone in the country. Okay. First, it starts by U.S. mail. Now we put they take a the people at the fair, for instance, that are purchasing this for $2. It used to be $1, but price of postage went up so much. But anyhow, they can send a message to anywhere in the country. On one side of the form, the little form, they put their name, address of where it goes to. On the other side of the form, they put Grandma, we miss you, or Grandpa said hello to so and so, or happy birthday so and so. So, and then we put that in it. We put it around the pigeon's leg with a counter mark. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And twice a day we fly the pigeons, so they all go back to their home lofts, and then we take that message off the pigeon's leg and put it in an envelope with this letter that says, "It's our pleasure to forward the message to you. We're at the Emmett County Fair, et cetera, et cetera. And the first part of this journey, your message went by pigeon, and the second part by U.S. mail." Okay, and we
Oh,
can
that's
also
cool.
send this to like servicemen on their ships and stuff like that. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's been it's unforgettable. People come year after year after year after year with sending more and more and more of these things, and that's the way we make our money for our treasury. That's the only way.
That's a really smart way of doing it right there. I think anybody listening should be doing something like that. Yeah, that's what a great way to promote right there.
It's a win-win for everybody. That's right,
Yeah.
exactly right. I get letters all the time, cards from grandmas or grandpas or whatever saying, "Oh, it was such a pleasure to get this message and thank you," et cetera, et cetera. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, they still do the Hash Knife Pony Express out here in Arizona, so they'll still deliver, and it's only for a small little stretch, but you buy this special thing, and you have it delivered that way. But it's really cool to be like, oh, this letter traveled so much by a horse, so to be able to still say this message was carried by a pigeon, that's
that's right.
amazing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And then so you're doing this like you guys have a booth or something at a fairgrounds and
Bring the traveling loft to the fairgrounds. We're outside the small animal barn. We have a place every year after year after year there with our signs and tables and stuff like that. So we do that at that county fair. We've done it at other things similar to fairs.
can you describe what your traveling loft kind of looks like and how you made it and what it's made out of and stuff? We did an interview with Cusack and he has a mobile loft that he puts up at the fair and it gets thousands of people that stop by. It's a really big thing. And then other listeners have in the past reached out, same thing, wanted to build a loft. So I was like, you know what, you're talking about having a portable loft, so I'm going to ask you about it.
I don't know if you can pick up. This.
Okay, yeah, I can kind of see a picture of it there. Well, can you describe it for us a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. It's roughly 6 by 10. It has a large aviary on the outside that takes up like all that 6 by 10 area, or most of it. It cuts off where there's stairs that go up, so the public can go in and look not at the birds, but look at what the inside looks like. We put the birds in the aviary that have the messages on their legs or whatever, and then we twice a day we release the birds from the aviary.
So even that's probably something to see too.
Oh, yeah, we have 50, 60 people that want to see it. And I caution them, beware the poop. I also tell them, nah, don't worry about that because they tuck their legs behind them. They're too particular. They don't poop on their own legs.
But I'm really hoping that as people who are listening to this kind of get a spark and do this as well.
It's easy.
This is so great for the racing hobby, for the pigeon hobby. You're bringing youth into it, you're getting them into it, and you found a way, with these loaner lofts. That's brilliant right there. You're making it easy because it really does come back down to making the parents comfortable because they're going to be the ones that you really have to convince. It's easy to convince a kid to get an animal, but getting the parents on board with it too.
We also give free birds to people that want to join,
Okay.
young birds so they can train them.
Okay, you do the young birds. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So someone who wants to start a 4-H, pigeon racing program in the area, what was the first thing you would tell them to do?
Publicity.
Yeah, advertise.
Advertise in so many different ways that they can. Don't pay for it, of course, unless you have big bucks. But advertise, let people know that there is such a thing, and you're there to help.
What are some of the different ways that you would recommend that are like what was effective for you with your methods of advertising to get it out there? So you said you put something in the newspaper.
When they had newspapers, they gave us front page color pictures often. Well, that was one thing. And then, of course, all our presentations that we have at libraries and the fair and senior facilities, et cetera, et cetera. Those really help as far as publicity.
What kind of mistakes do you think beginners could make and should try to avoid when tackling
Yeah,
a job like this?
the biggest mistake, and it was my mistake for not recognizing it also the biggest mistake was for some of the younger kids to have these birds as pets. Okay. Um, because if you do that and you lose a bird for hawks or whatever, it hurts some of the kids. All right.
Right.
So, and I do caution the kids when they come to the house that they can lose birds, et cetera, et cetera. Means normally it means nothing. They don't realize what losing a bird is when they've made a pet out of it, when they've named them all and stuff like that. So I don't try to not convince them to do that anymore. I explain to the parents and the kids, reality is you may lose a bird or two. We gave our last family, they had built themselves a nice loft, and we gave them 11 birds. Well, they now have 10. On the first flight, training flight, one did not come back. And that happened to be a favorite bird of the little girl.
Of course, it's the favorite
But
always. Yeah.
but that would be fortunately we can give healthy birds to the kids so they don't lose them that way.
Well, we're coming up against the clock here. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the racing community right now while you got their ear?
It's exciting. It's exciting to see the families work together, and it's exciting to see the kids working with their parents, everyone working together. And that's the families working together too. That's the most exciting thing for me.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, thanks for everything that you're doing. That's amazing for the pigeon hobby, for the racing hobby, and everything else. And thanks for coming on the show and talking to us about it. Hopefully, other people listen to you, get inspired, and pick up the ball and take off of themselves.
I hope so. I hope so because no one knows what it is anymore.
Right. Yeah. Let's change that.
You take care.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
I want to invite all our listeners to something we've been doing called the All About Pigeons Lounge. Every other Thursday, starting at 6 p.m. Utah time, we open up a casual Zoom hangout for pigeon people from all corners of the hobby. rollers, racing, fancy breeds, or even if you're just getting started with pigeons. People have been joining from all over the country and around the world. You just sit back, relax, and talk pigeons. That feels a lot like standing around someone's loft or talking birds at a pigeon show. There's a ton of information that gets shared between fanciers. People bring up ideas, techniques, and little things they've tried in their own lofts that you might have never thought of before. It gives you new things to consider and try with your own setup. One of the really cool parts is seeing different parts of the hobby connect. Roller flyers, racing flyers, and fancy breeders all sharing ideas and experiences together. The lounge opens at 6 p.m. and usually goes for a few hours. You can stop in whenever you want, hang out for as long as you'd like, and head out whenever you're ready. You can find the Zoom link and the details on the All About Pigeons podcast Facebook page or at pigeonpod.com. We'd love to see you there. Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help it keep it going, as well as supporting your other pigeon promotional work, head to the website pigeonpod, that's pigeonpod.com. You can make a donation there. If you can't make a donation today, support the show by giving us a good 5-star review wherever you're listening to us at right now. That really helps the podcast and helps the algorithm get us out there to other people who might not know about Pigeon Podcast. If you have any episode requests, upcoming pigeon shows, competition results, or you want to be a guest on the show and just talk about some pigeons, or you have a shout out for a friend, shoot us an email at staff@pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate your support. And remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons. I hope you enjoyed that discussion with Mike. Next, we're shifting gears and looking at one of the technologies that has transformed pigeon racing, electronic hand scanning and timing systems. So let's jump into that conversation. This episode of the All About Pigeons podcast is brought to you by the Champions United One Loft Race. Champions United is a one loft racing event that brings pigeons from multiple breeders together in a single loft, giving every bird a fair chance to compete in a series of exciting races. Birds are trained and released under the same conditions, making it a true test of speed, homing ability, and consistency. Whether you're a seasoned racer or simply love watching pigeons excel, Champions United is a great way to experience competitive racing. Visit championsunitedoneloftrace.com to learn more, follow race updates, and connect with this passionate racing community. Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Philip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds and this ancient hobby. Today we're going to be talking about hand scanning and one loft races. We have with us Tim Farr, who wrote a really interesting article on this. So, Tim, thanks so much for coming on the podcast and talking with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Can you tell us a little bit about your own background and then how you got into writing this article about this?
I'm 39 now, so I go back to 12 years old, Southern California kid, just playing with my buddies in the neighborhood, going to my buddy's backyard, and his dad was a cop. He had a bunch of lofts in the yard and they were racing pigeons. And my buddy pointed to this mountain off in the distance and it was like 100 miles away. He's like, yeah, we let the birds go yesterday and they came back. And the moment he said that, my mind was blown and I was hooked from that point on. And I thought about pigeons at at all moments. I checked out every book from the library back when that was a thing. And I was just absolutely obsessed with pigeons from that point on. And for me, a lot of guys are in the sport for the competition. I'm a very competitive person, but for me, it's truly the love and the appreciation of what the bird does and the way they're able to find their way home from unknown places and distances and all that. So I've just been hooked ever since. And I've had them off and on. My career in the military is, I've had to give them up here and there, but I raced when I was a junior member in California, got back into them years later, raced up here in Washington State, left again, still had the birds, moved them cross country a few times, back east to North Carolina, and then back here. And we've pretty much been here for almost 10 years, and I've been racing pretty much for the last 8 years up here. It's been a good run, but I'm slowing down a little bit right now, but I'm still very much, I've got the birds and still got my eye on competing in a bigger way in the future.
You're club racing in that area right now?
Yeah. So I'm in I'm in the Southwest Washington Racers Club, and actually, I'm gonna put a plug in. We have an event this coming Saturday. If anybody's in the Idaho or Washington area, but also Idaho, Oregon, any of the bordering states, and can make the drive up, it's on January 3rd, in Rochester, Washington, and they can reach out to me or figure out how to get a hold of me and get details on that. But it's a great event. This is our third year. It's been growing every year since, and our club it's unique. We only fly a old bird season, so we don't fly young birds. We basically our club has kind of decided that just to get more interest and not have the guys that are onesies and twosies in this season and this season, we all focus on one season together and raise babies later. Gives the birds a better chance to make it through a body molt naturally. And then we've noticed the returns are just so much greater when old bird season rolls around. Even guys that just don't have the time to train the birds the way they should are clocking birds on some of our longest and hardest races, and it's just giving the birds a chance to succeed versus like your typical young bird season where guys are always, everybody's busy or whatever, and they don't have their system down. It's young birds is very systems driven, and guys just don't get it right, and then they end up sending birds that are in a heavy body mold, losing tons of birds. You got all the environmental factors and all these things that lead to high losses, and then you don't have guys that are able to fly an old bird season, so it just creates this unsustainable program, I guess. And our club's kind of moved away from that, and it's really been working out well, and our club's growing. We're pretty active on social media. We run Craigslist ads. We've actually gained quite a bit of members from the Craigslist ad that I've been running, and then social media and anyways, yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely a local guy, but One Loft Racing is in my in my sights. I understand the sport is most likely going that direction, and I've kind of started to dabble in it. I'm not fully focused on it. I definitely want to breed birds that can compete locally and in One Loft Racing, so I'm mindful of that in the way that I select and I race. But I'm also very, very stringent. I have high expectations of the One Loft races that I enter, and that's kind of led me into this whole hand scanning deal. The more I learn, and I honestly I was ignorant to a lot of things in One Loft racing, and I think a lot of people out there they just assume if they're a local racing guy, they're sending birds out, and they assume these races are being conducted in the same manner that they're racing at home, which is come to the club, the bird's being handled, the bird is physically being scanned on the scanner and put into the crate. And that's not the case. There's races out there that run the races similarly to a training toss, and they'll just basket load them all up.
They kind of explain how the hand scanning works for like how you guys are doing the race clubs compared to the different various ways of how it could be done at some of these one-off races.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, the races, some out there, and it's really just they don't have. If you look at like some of these international races, they have cheap labor, right? So they've got a lot of people that are able to help them out, and that's why it's and really internationally. So I'm sure there's like it's more stringent for that reason. But you'll see these races, they're always being hand scanned. They're videoing them, they're showing you the bird, they're showing you the band number. Like there's all these verifications that this bird is in fact going to this race, right? Well, here in the United States, for whatever reason, there's guys that maybe aren't full time, that don't have the right loft design to load these birds in a efficient manner without stressing them out and being able to pull them out of the crates individually and then hand scan them the same way. And then obviously it takes time because they have to grab each bird, run it across the scanner, and load it into the trailer. And if they're skipping that, if they are just shoot loading these birds, there's many things that can happen that I detailed in the article. You have chips. Anybody local races knows chips go bad. Any one loft manager that is upfront will tell you every year they are finding birds with chips that fail. So one instance is you think your bird was lost because you entered this race that doesn't hand scan, doesn't have these checks in place, and your bird was there the entire race series. And maybe they just hand scanned on the final, and then they find the bird and they say that the bird showed back up, goes to the final race, maybe wins prize money in the final race or whatever, but you're still out of the average speed for that entire series, and there is money involved. I mean, a lot of these races have lesser prizes on the shorter races, but they also have ace pigeon prizes for the series. So you were not eligible for that, and your bird was there the entire time, and that can go into your selection as well. You're like, people talk about one hit wonders. You're like, oh, this bird only. He was, in your mind, he was lost the entire series. He showed up and did something on the final one, but he might have been doing awesome the entire series. His chip just went bad, and it wasn't found until the very last race, right? Um, so there's also the humane thing to do is, I expect a lot of my birds, but I'm tough, but I'm fair on them. I don't send injured birds on races. I don't send birds that are not capable of flying the distance on these races. And when you're not putting hands on these birds and not seeing something that happened, it could have been doing great through the series, and right before the final race, it came in and smacked into something. It's got a swollen wing joint that just isn't visible, but you would notice it the second you grabbed it, or any number of things. And then he gets shoot loaded for that race, and the bird's gone. And in your mind, that bird was inferior, but that's not actually the case. He wasn't capable of making it home, and he could have been a great bird. He just stuff happens, and those are all the things that can be negated by actually putting hands on these birds and running it just like a local race, where you would never in a local race, and no club would show up and just let a guy show up with his own basket list and just everybody assume that those birds are there and just load all their birds into the crates and send them on their way. That's not how races, a legitimate race, is conducted. And I think more people need to be aware of that. And these races are expensive.
Yeah.
You're spending your hard-earned money on these races, and I get it. These guys, like, there's so many one loft races that have popped up, and everybody wants to turn it into a business. You have this dream of having this big race and making a living doing it. And in my opinion, if you see a race that's not hand scanning and is cutting corners in that way, what other ways are they cutting corners? And I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything malicious or shady or anything, but time is money, right? So if it's one guy and he's only got so much time and he's not actually doing this, what else is he skipping? So I see the hand scanning now. The more I've really thought about it, is like the gold standard. If a race is gonna if they're gonna show you, especially video it, they're gonna hand scan and show you every, and they're gonna go through that. It's a lot of work. Like, it's a lot of work. If they're doing that, they're probably doing everything else right. I can't say that for sure, but that's the way that I feel. And that's so for me now, it's for me to even enter a race, a one loft race, that's a given. I won't enter a race unless they're hand scanning, period.
All those are super valid points. I mean, it's just another filter for the birds to go through, and the aspect of actually putting hands on a bird. And that's where it's going to start getting difficult. I think you're so on point with this, because a lot of these one loft races, because it is kind of a money thing, you got to have a big pot. You get a big pot by having a ton of birds. And if you have a ton of birds, then really running them through that filter of handling each bird, either you're getting more people to help you, or it's just not going to get done.
Yeah.
When you see these one lofts advertised, it's all about the different distances, the different pots, activation fees, perch fees. That would be something nice to see, right? Like, we hand scan each one of our birds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point to have on there.
Yeah, and you'll see it now. There's certain races, and I think I won't name any races, but on their flyers, they're putting it front and center, hand scan every race, and I think that's awesome. That's something that should be advertised right up front, because to me, that just seeing that shows that race is going to go the extra mile in everything they do. It may not be my type of race because it's a faster type race. I don't like blow home races, things like that. But I
Hmm.
still can respect that they're running the race in a honest and fair manner, and I will endorse that. I'll support that, and I'll recommend those races to people that are into that kind of race. I won't. I will. If anybody, I have people that ask me, especially after I wrote the article, my opinion on certain races. I'm not gonna make it public, but I will absolutely advise people on, because I know how certain races are conducted and all that. Yeah, I think that that's a great thing, and that these one lofts are starting to do is advertising that in particular.
What are some of the one loft races that you do participate in?
Going back to the way we fly here, this last year I didn't enter any. I was gone for work a lot. I didn't end up pairing my birds up till super late. And the only race I had entered the previous year was the High Desert Yearling Classic. I've done really well in that race over the past few years, and I just didn't end up having birds ready in time. But I have entered the High Desert Texas Center Winter Meet 2 years ago. I had a bird on the final drop on that race. 2 years ago, I had the bird that won the race at the High Desert.
Nice.
And then let's see. I mean, I've entered multiple races over the years, but it's really I've whittled down the races that I'm truly interested in. I going back to the type of races, just my thoughts is one loft racing does feel very much like gambling, and I'm not a gambler. I like to compete, but like if it feels like gambling to me, I'm just not interested, and that's everybody's free to do whatever they want with their money, but for me, even locally, I'm not the guy that's like, we'll do like a fun $1 pick bird at the club or whatever. I'll do that, but I'm not the guy that's like pooling birds or anything like that. I just do it because I mean, I'll win prize money for sure, but I'm not trying to bet on birds and things like that. And if the one loft has the conditions and the type of race where it just feels like gambling, it's a lot of like tailwinds, and birds are like, the winning birds are coming from the wrong direction. It's very obvious the whole flock went by, and the first birds that actually won were actually later birds that just turned back sooner, and things like all those things. I'm just not interested in that. So the type of race I like is a race that has a traditionally, is a bit tougher environmentally, more consistent headwinds, where it is going to force the good birds to pull away. They're going to come online. They're not going to, get blown every which way. And a little bit of heat. I think that's also a thing that you don't find in young bird races per se, because it's usually the fall into winter time frame
Right.
that they're run. I like the yearling type races, so I'll send birds, and it matches the time of year that I breed. If I breed starting in, typically I pair up like April or May, and I'll breed all summer long, really. Those late hatch races are really ideal for me in the way, and I don't have to pair birds up early and then figure out where to put them, because my race loft is set up just for that old bird season, right? It just fits my system, if you will. So those yearling races tend to be, in the spring into summer time frame, so the temperatures are actually warming, versus like your young bird series is starting warm into cold, so it's actually getting cooler temperature wise. So I like the races where it's actually the heat is becoming a bit more of a factor in those longer races, and actually making it a little bit tougher to really let those great birds shine, right? And I'm not saying they're not great birds that win the young bird races. I'm just saying it's something that I like to see is a bird that really, like, in tough conditions, kind of pulls away, or just shows he's consistent in that way.
Yeah.
So that those are the kind of races that I enter, and so I'm really looking for those types of races. I entered the Africa Pro the first year it was going, and I had these dreams of entering the South Africa $1 million race before that race folded. So that was kind of the type of bird that I'd always envisioned in my head, that I wanted, was that tough, like, South Africa $1 million race bird.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like that's what I'm selecting for, and that's the kind of race I'm looking for. So nothing against all those other races, but yeah, I'm not in it for the party at the end of the race, or the gambling or anything like that.
In line with individually hand scanning the birds, what else would be some good questions that breeders can ask one loft managers before sending their birds to that one loft race?
Another one that's important, especially for these young bird races, is the molt, right? And I think that, in my opinion, for a young bird race, the ninth and 10th should be pulled no matter what. And unfortunately, some races don't do it because it slows progress down, especially if they get those later birds, right? And they have to pull the 9 and 10, but they already got the main flock going. It's easier to get those birds integrated and rolling, so that they can get training sooner. But the problem is, if you send these birds and they do different lines of birds molt at different speeds. So you got some birds that are slow in the wing molt, and they'll probably be fine, especially if you send them late. But you get those birds that are like faster and in the molt, and they get towards the end of the race season, and they're on those last final flights. And now that bird is going to the final race missing a ninth or missing a 10th, and he's just at a disadvantage. There's always extremes. There's examples everybody can pull out of a bird that won a final race, missing a ninth flight or missing a 10th flight. And the guys that say it doesn't matter, I just don't agree with. I think those are exceptions to the rule. I think the one loft environment needs to be as fair as possible. So that's one way that it keeps things fair for every single person in that loft. And the only other way that these races can control that is keep their intake window very short. But it is a business to some, and I mean they are doing it to make a profit, so they need as many birds as possible, which means they have to often keep the intake longer, which means they're taking birds much further into the intake, which slows, the progress of getting these birds through the molt, training, and all the above. And then you've got different environments. Like down south, it's really not an issue as far as the molt goes because they fly so late into the winter. I mean, there's a bunch of races down south that are just doing their final races right now, and their longest races, like they'll do their optional 400s and stuff, and it'll be this month. But when you're talking about your races up north, obviously they gotta be winners. So those are going to be the races where it's more of an issue, and they got to get them on the road sooner, and they're going to run up against that molt that's possibly causing issues for certain birds. So I would say that's one thing. And then just historically seeing these races, and periodically they'll do hand scan inventories even prior to the races, right? So it's like as they're progressing, they're checking the molt, they're checking, make sure your chips are good, things like it's just the extra step they're going through, and they're treating those birds more like their own team at home and less like just a bunch of chickens that they're just pushing through the crates and here and there and everywhere, and like maybe seeing a bird that's off in the loft and going and grab it or whatever. But there's something to be said for actually putting hands on the bird. And I can't, I mean, there's so many different flavors to one loft race. There's a race out there for just about everybody in the way that they like or what they're interested in. And I can't really advise on, I have my preferences for the type of race, but I truly, the way I've begun to think is if they're doing that, if you see a history of these guys putting hands on birds, they're probably doing everything else right too, because it's just such a big undertaking, in my opinion. Another one, the races that are, I think it's hard going back to, long intake windows, the races that are locking these birds up for months on end, and you'll send them, and instead of actually getting them out in groups, they're just locking them up and just letting them molt and not actually getting them out and flying. I just think that creates a lot of dumb pigeons early on. I think those birds got to get out early. They got to go use their brain. I also train dogs, and you got to train dogs and they're young. They're super motivated. They just have all the energy in the world. They love to learn, they're excited, and they have all this youthful exuberance, and that's the time that you got to capitalize on teaching them. And that's when they should be out exploring, learning their home, imprinting all the things they see out there, versus just sitting in the loft and going down to the floor, eating food, and going back to their perch and sitting and getting fat and not actually using their brain. So I think that's another thing I would look for in a race, is the races that are actually, because that's another one. It's just more work. They got to be out there loft flying these birds in groups, getting birds in, letting the next group out, and just the way they're settling, it just takes a lot of time. And I recognize that it's labor intensive. But that's another thing that I would absolutely look for in a race. I don't like these races that just have the birds sitting for weeks to months, waiting before they start training all of them.
So before you wrote the article, this started as like an online discussion, right?
Yeah, I did. I noticed some races that just were, in my opinion, not doing things correctly, and I decided to, bring awareness to it. I made a post. I think it was like in Pigeon Central or one of the Facebook groups that created a lot of discussion, and that led to me deciding that it was probably a good idea to write an article and because there's plenty of guys that get the digest that aren't on social media, don't really have an internet presence. There's still guys, and I hear the stories of these one loft races where they got guys sending birds, sending checks, don't even have access to Win Companion, which I think is wild. It's like I it's already bad enough. Some of these races, all you're looking at is numbers on the screen, but if you're not even doing that, you're just waiting to hear a word that your bird did something. That's not even fun to me, unless it's about going to the final race party.
All right, yeah.
Nothing against that at all. Like I don't live near any races that I would, want to go to the final race for or anything like that. But yeah, if I live down in like Southern California or Florida or Texas where some of these really cool big races are and
Mm,
had the ability to go to the final race and it was all about that, then yeah, heck yeah, I'd be all about that. But that's not really the case for me. So, anyways, I just figured the digest was a good way to get the word out, cast a wider net, and bring awareness. And it definitely got attention. I took a picture of the article and I shared that again on social media, and that also pushed it further. And then truly, I was surprising how many people had no idea how these races are conducted. I had guys contacting me that they just assumed that races were ran, they local race, maybe they got out of it for a while, they just figured that's the only way you can run a race. They didn't realize there's ways to bypass and just take a basketing list from a trainer and make that the race basketing list for the actual race.
right.
Those are all ways that races are able to get around that. Hopefully, I save some people some money and they don't feel like they're throwing money away on a race that wasn't being ran in a way that they would approve of. And maybe it hopefully got. My hope is also the good guys out there that are doing the right thing is it helped to push guys their way because they are doing
Right.
all the right things and setting the standard for others to follow, really. And that's awesome. I think more guys, I think some of those guys don't want to make waves and they don't want to, I guess, make the other races look bad, but it's a business. Like
Yeah.
you should be making it known, and those guys either get in line or fall away and don't maintain that standard and don't keep up.
Especially with these one left races, it really is about got to be transparent, fairness, got to check those boxes. And this is a big overlooked thing, So when I read that article, it was just like, oh yeah, like I mean, you had so many valid points in there about all the things that are going to get missed with just this mass operation of just funneling birds through.
Yeah,
What if a person's only sending in a couple of birds and not getting any results, but their birds are doing it?
yeah, for sure.
You also mentioned that your racing pigeon club was doing pretty good by doing different ads on Craigslist, and were you doing some on Facebook too, or just Craigslist?
Going back, I don't know, I think I made it like 8 years. I made it just an actual Facebook page. I made it as if it's a business, not a group.
Okay.
I kind of got smart on the algorithm and stuff like that. So I started post, just with my iPhone or whatever, made some reels. I started recording my releases. I started posting every week. We'd post the winning bird with the results on the club page and just doing different things to make content, if you will. And it just started taking off. And I think our page has like 8,000 followers or something like that. And what it does is, again, I've kind of learned a little bit about how Facebook works and how businesses get their word out there. But the more, like, if you make a post and enough people are interested, actually Facebook, without even paying, will actually just push that out to people in your area, wherever. And then truly, we had two members that I can think of off the top of my head. They found us through the Facebook page. It just came up. One guy, his grandfather, was a big time, well known racing pigeon fancier here locally, and he had him when he was a kid, but he never had him again after that. And then it just came up, it just showed it to him, and he messaged us, and that's how. And now he's an active member in the club, and that was how he found us. So I have this like. A lot of guys get discouraged about promotion and they just don't see instant results and they just kind of poo-poo it and they just give up on it. It's like I've been doing it for years, and there's all these other ways that are great. Going to your local farm store, or just doing releases and public awareness, and all of they're great things. But everybody's on the internet nowadays. Even the older population is getting on there. And Craigslist, we did an ad in the farm and garden section, and guys will just be scrolling. You know how many guys go on Craigslist just to see what's on Craigslist, right? They'd search, or they wouldn't even search pigeons. They'd just be looking at whatever on Facebook or on Craigslist. It would come up. They'd read it. I had this, and anybody that wants to do what we did, they can steal. I encourage stealing. Like I don't care if you give me credit, whatever, as long as you benefit from it. You can go on there and you can search Southwest Washington Racers on Craigslist, or you just contact me and you can literally copy and and put your own little personal blurb in there. I wrote some stuff about like don't let your kids get nature deficit disorder because Jim Jenner talks about that in his
Yeah.
videos and stuff. And I made it like really like to draw people in, and then there's a bunch of pictures on there, and it just kind of sucks people in, and that's kind of what it takes. It's kind of like me. Like I just happened to walk into my buddy's backyard and saw the pigeons, and he pointed to that mountain and said, "We let our birds go," and they came back, and I was just like, "That's it." That was like the thing that stuck in my mind. So it's just somebody reading it that has never heard of it, and it was like, "What is this? Why haven't I heard about this? I wanna figure out more about this." And you find that one person every year or every 2 years or whatever, it's still finding one person. It will keep a club alive.
Right.
If you find one member every 2 or 3 years, your club is still going to survive. And guys don't they get frustrated with it, and they just don't see the results, and they just get real negative about it. It's like you got to play the long game. Just be consistent with it. Social media again, I think is great. Make a Facebook page, but make it as a business. Don't make it as a group. Say whatever your club is, and then Racing Pigeon Club that helps, because other pigeon people will find, and even local guys, you'd be surprised how many guys just have pigeons locally and don't even know there's a pigeon club. I've actually met people that had racing homers at home, didn't even know there was a local pigeon club, and which I thought was wild. But anyways, the more you can bring awareness that you're actually there and people can just suddenly find you. Also, lost birds. We've had so many birds found because somebody finds one of our club's birds. They don't even I'm talking just going straight to us. They don't even go to because they can call the AU. The AU will get in touch with us. They will just go on Google and type in SWWR, and SWWR pigeon brings up our club, our Facebook page, and then they message us on our Facebook page, and we've had so many birds recovered that way. Even other clubs. I think more clubs should consider. You got to have a guy that's somewhat technologically capable to do that. But if you have a guy, do it for sure. I totally recommend it. It'll benefit you, no doubt.
All the hard work is already being done. You're creating birds, you're releasing birds. Just we all got smartphones. Just record it and post it.
Exactly.
That's easy, and that does a lot. I mean, that's great to hear that you guys have a growing club. What's the name of your Facebook group so people can find you and copy everything that you're doing over there?
Yeah, yeah. If you just search Southwest Washington Racers on Facebook, or search it on Google, it'll come up. You'll find it. I have a Facebook page also, guys. Just look up FAR, FARR, like my last name, and then Racing Pigeons. And I've got a page also, and I've kind of started posting my own stuff too. Not like boring everybody with my own stuff on the club page, but we keep the club more as like general club stuff, and then I've got my own thing going. Anybody reach out to me, they contact me, I'll send them the Craigslist ad, and then just take their own or steal our pictures, whatever. I don't care. Like, stealing is totally fine in this instance if it benefits the sport, and just do what we're doing in their area. And I can't guarantee it, but I strongly believe it will help, with the promotion and growing their club.
Awesome. I hope it all keeps growing for you guys. And, hey, thank you so much. This has been super informative. And I think this episode right here is probably going to take just go back and listen to it again, because you dumped a lot of information out there for people to really take some notes on, anybody who's going to be sending into one lot races. So thank you so much, Tim. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries. I'm glad you had me on. Thanks for having me.
This episode of the All About Pigeons podcast is brought to you by the Champions United One Loft Race. Champions United is a one loft racing event that brings pigeons from multiple breeders together in a single loft, giving every bird a fair chance to compete in a series of exciting races. Birds are trained and released under the same conditions, making it a true test of speed, homing ability, and consistency. Whether you're a seasoned racer or simply love watching pigeons excel, Champions United is a great way to experience competitive racing. Visit championsunited1loftrace.com to learn more, follow race updates, and connect with this passionate racing community. Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help it keep it going, as well as supporting your other pigeon promotional work, head to the website PigeonPod, that's pigeonpod.com. You can make a donation there. If you can't make a donation today, support the show by giving us a good 5-star review wherever you're listening to us at right now. That really helps the podcast and helps the algorithm get us out there to other people who might not know about Pigeon Podcast. If you have any episode requests, upcoming Pigeon shows, competition results, or you want to be a guest on the show and just talk about some pigeons, or you have a shout out for a friend, shoot us an email at staff@pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate your support. And remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons. Now that we've covered the technology side of racing, let's talk about one of the greatest challenges in this sport, long distance racing. In this next interview, we dive into what it takes to compete when your birds are flying hundreds of miles back home. Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Philip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds in this ancient hobby. Today we have with us John Finsell. He's been long distance racing pigeons since him and his father were doing it back in 1958, and he has a long history with that. So we're going to talk about long distance pigeon racing today. So John, thanks so much for coming on and talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
You've been racing pigeons with your dad since 1958. Can you talk about your introduction into pigeons and how you guys got into doing that?
Well, my father got birds from two old flyers in Buffalo. One was Father Davidic, and the other one was Matt Carpenti. And my father quickly put a loft up in a garage and up in the top, and that's what we started with. And after a while, there was another gentleman, a friend of ours. His name was Stanley Radon. He had the old Scions. He had family issues, so he gave us all his birds. And he had a AU Hall of Fame champion called Monica. It was either 1964 or 1965. Well, anyway, that's what I started off with, all the Scions. And then I liked the Reds from Charlie Heinzman, so I started buying birds from Heinzman. We had 24 pair of stock birds of all Scions from Charlie Heinzman, and that's what we flew, and that's what we went forward with.
So all your family was Scions from the beginning then?
Well, we had odds and end birds in 1958, and then 1975 is when I bought my first pair of birds from Charlie Heinzman. And just before that, it's going to be about 1970 is when we got the Scions from Stanley Radon. He lived in Lackawanna, New York.
And what pigeon club were you guys racing with back then?
Back then, we were flying with the Peerless Racing Pigeon Club, and the association was the Buffalo Association. We had 7 clubs that flew in that association, and that's where we were flying with.
What's the club scene look like now?
We don't really have a club anymore.
Oh, okay.
It's sad because I miss it, but the old timers quit. The younger people never got into it, and it was like it just fell apart.
So you talked about the Buffalo Association ran a 500 championship race every year.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about that and some of the wins that you had in the 80s with that?
Look at the 500-mile championship race. I loved that race because it was called the championship race. And I always strive for that race and the 600 Grand International race. For the 500-mile championship race, we used to have 35 pair of race birds. So what I ended up doing was, since we had 3 long races, I broke my team up into 3 separate teams. So I set them up on eggs for 18 days, 18 days on race day. And I just picked out the best that I had. I was not a mob flyer. So all the long races that we won, I won with only 9, 7, 5 birds shipping all the time. I picked out the best, and that's all I needed.
So when you were picking out the best back then, has what you consider to be a good pigeon changed to what you consider a good pigeon now when it comes to picking out good birds?
I think it changed a little bit because all the long distance strains are basically all gone. I mean, if you look to see where the Scions are, Charlie Heinzman passed away. I mean, he gave some birds away. He sold a lot of his birds, but nobody really has them. And since we're not racing the long races anymore, I ended up getting cancer. a guy in New York ended up buying all my science that I had because he goes, I had the true science, the only one that he can find. And he bought me right out. And that's what he has right now. So I don't have any of the science here anymore because nobody has long distance races anymore.
So when you're looking at a bird, are you talking mainly wingspan?
Wingspan, how they handle small, medium type birds. I mean, I like when the tip of the wings went right down to almost the back of the tail. There was so many things that I looked for. Racing was all about them, and sometimes I never pushed my birds hard enough. Where some guys would fly them every week, I never did. I took my time with them. I worked with them, and they might fly 2 races a year, and that was it. Some of them flew 4 races a year, but I picked them when they were in shape. They were conditioned to fly, and that's how I ship my birds to the races.
How does your training method work for these long distance races, and what age do you start that with?
I usually start all of that from yearlings up because as young birds, I only flew my young birds up to 200 miles, and I stopped them at 300 miles. I would throw, odds and ends in there, and that was it. As yearlings, I would train them. Believe it or not, I before I went to work, I would go 50 miles and I triple toss them every morning. And then after a while, when we trained at night, we let the hens out first, and then we let the cockbirds out about 10 minutes later.
How much would you work up to? So you're going 50-mile tosses right there, and then after that, would you just make pretty big jumps on the distances?
Yeah, I mean, once the birds were, 1 year old, 2, 3 year olds, they had enough races under the belt. I mean, I flew them anyway. Then I didn't worry about it. I would ship them. Normally, what I would do is I ship them a couple short races, 100, 150, 200. Then all I did was race them, not race them. I would train them. I would set them up on age, and that's what I ended up doing. So they didn't fly a lot of races for me. I didn't believe in pushing them every week by week by week because you burn them out, especially when it comes down to long races.
Are you letting them loft fly?
Yes, I would. In the morning, I would loft fly my birds for 1 hour in the morning, and I would clean them. And then after evenings, when my father would come home, eat dinner, and then my father would take them 50 miles away and let them go.
How are you shipping the birds out for those 150 and 200-mile drops?
Well, we went through the club, so we would ship through the club, and we had our races over there, and that's how we got our birds in races. I mean, I would never train my birds further than 50 miles. I believed they didn't need it when they were a couple years old, 3 years old. They didn't need that hard training. They just need short tosses to make sure they know where to break and how to come home.
What would your initial toss be?
First toss for young birds, I would take them maybe 10 miles. Then I would take them 20 miles. Then I would take them again 20 miles. And I jump them to 30. And I had to hit spots all the way down where I had enough open space to let them out.
You're releasing in all four directions, or were you always going from one certain area?
I always did the line of flight.
And so they wouldn't even be really doing any long distance training until they were fully developed. And that was the point of what you were waiting for that age.
Yes. Because when I talked with Charlie Heinzman, he was a master in long races and getting those birds to come home. He always believed the science were a slow maturing family. So as young birds, he never pushed them past 200 miles. As yearlings, he never flew them past 300 miles, and that's what I did. Then as 2 year olds and up, that's when he pushed them, and that's what I ended up doing, and it worked. But I didn't push them that hard. I just waited my time. I picked the birds that were in condition, and that's what I shipped. And the guys in the club used to laugh at me. You got 100 pigeons, all you're shipping is 7 birds. And that's what I used to do. and they did very well for me.
So you don't have any scions right now. What are some of the bloodlines that you do have in your loft?
Right now, I got some of the bloodlines from Vic Miller. I got Mike Yanis bloodlines. I got a Loft bloodlines. I got a couple Jansons that I have here, and that's basically it. I only got 15 pair of birds. That's all I have.
And I mean, compared to what you've seen over the years of flying long distance, do you think that these birds, still cut it, still do long distance flying in the way you'd like to see?
If I had the family of birds, I kept my scions, and we had a long race, I think I would do very well with them.
What about eye sign when you're looking at the pigeon's eye? Do you put any weight on that when it comes to breeding or choosing a pigeon?
You know, with my scions, I always like a dark chestnut color eye. And I always like to breed a light color eye to a dark color eye. But then when you have all your scions having all dark color eyes, I call them chestnut color. They're dark and rich. Well, that's all I had. That's how I kept them together and bred them. I mean, I was never really an eyesight man. I just put the best to the best, and that's how I bred.
Winner to winner, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your recovery process like after these birds came back from a long distance race?
My recovery was phenomenal because we used to fly on Friday. That's when they released the birds. So on Saturday, I give them a tablespoon of honey to a gallon of water. And on Sundays throughout the whole year, I would take a cod liver oil pill that I bought at the GNC store, and I would handle every single one of my birds and give them a cod liver oil pill to see how they handle, how they felt, and to make sure no one was getting sick or getting run down. It was a lot of work, but I enjoy doing
So those cod liver pills are pretty big, aren't they?
that. Yes, they were.
Okay.
But when you put them down their throat, they just slid right down. And I figure, just one pill a week. I mean, my birds were never sick. They never got sick. They were as healthy as ever. And I had so many compliments on the birds. And we just had a system that worked for us.
So you're only doing that then during the race season?
No, I should give them calorie pills every single week for the whole year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, that gives you, like you said, it's a good excuse to get in there and handle your birds too.
Yeah. And I always loved spending time with the birds when I was growing up. So I would go there and I had my birds trained. I used a 3 foot long dowel, and I would tap the floor twice and they would all fly into the nest box. What I did was it wasn't hard for me to catch them, just go in the nest box, pick out every single one, and give them a cowboy royal pill.
So was that feed training, the tapping on the floor to get them to do that?
No, it was more of a discipline type thing. I would tap the stick two, three times on the floor. They would fly in. In the beginning, I had a hard time, so I would chase them into their nest box. Then I would tap the floor with the stick, and they would just look at me. I go, "You guys are learning. That's where you have to go." And I talk to my birds like I talk to a human. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and they learned. And I had a couple of pigeon flyers here one day, and when I tapped that stick on the floor, they all flew in. They couldn't believe it. I go, "That's how well tamed they are, and how well trained they are." And it worked for me because I didn't have to chase them around the loft trying to catch them to give them a cod liver oil pill. I just went up and down every nest box and grabbed both birds and gave them a pill.
Did you ever do any deworming with any of your pigeons?
To be honest with you, as much I believe in giving birds a lot of good vitamins, keeping them healthy, and I really never medicated much through my whole life. I mean, and I never had really a sick bird. I mean, I do vaccinate once a year, but I don't medicate them. I don't give them nothing all year long.
Is that just the P and B vaccine that you're giving them?
Yes, the the paratyphoid and the PMV vaccine. I use both of that, and that's all I vaccinate them for. And outside of that, I don't have sick birds. My birds look great, and I never had issues with them.
So you said you do give them like supplements. What are some of the supplements that you're giving them?
You're gonna laugh at this one, but some time ago, what I used to buy a supplement out of New York from his name was John. I was using that for the longest time. I loved it, and then he got out of the pigeon sport for whatever reason, and he wanted to sell me his whole system for the birds. I was young; I couldn't afford it. It was called Pigeon World Products with John Scarso from Staten Island, and I still got the little catalog here from him. And I used to use a super form. I use all season multivitamins, super vital feed supplement. He had a lot of different things, and that's what I used. When he got out of it, I didn't pursue it because I think he wanted too much for him. And my father told me, "Don't get it, don't do it." But right now, what I'm using is a product out of Europe called Goldbird Products. A lot of Europeans are using it. I think there's a couple guys in the U.S. that's using it. I've been using it for 3 years. Well, going on 4 years now, and I've never had a sick bird. My birds are as healthy as ever. And when I sell birds or help guys out, new guys with birds, they would call me up, or their mentors would call me up and say, "I never seen a healthier bird like the birds you sent this guy." So that's all I use. Got to use a lot of vitamins in the water every day. You got to put oil on their feed with powders on their feed every single day. It's a lot of work, but I enjoy doing it because I don't like using medication.
What kind of oils are you putting on their feed?
The oils that I put on their feed is oregano 500. I put powdered 10 oil, bioherb, methical, and that's about it, really. I just do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, and the other 2 days they don't get nothing on the feed.
We were talking earlier about the long distance racing, and you were talking about a system that you had when it comes to bringing the birds in and feeding at night with a light. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, when we were trained, I just had my lights on inside the coop because I live out in the country. There's absolutely no lights. So when they would come down, they would come back home out of the west, and I would hear them. I whistle. They make a circle. They would be all over the place, hitting the wires, whatever, because it was dark outside. But then they would find their way in, and they would come in, and they would eat, drink, and about 11 o'clock, I turned the lights off when they were all settled in.
So I mean, 11 o'clock, that's pretty late. Would you say that's typical for some of these long distance birds to stay on the wing in the dark like that?
You know, through all the years of racing, I listened to a lot of people when I was growing up. We went to every convention every year, and I would sit there and listen to these people. And I would say, "Well, I don't like that one, but I like what he does. I like what he does." And I put together a system. But, animals are like people. If they're got a system where they come home, they eat certain times of the day. They want to eat certain times of the day. They go to bed certain times of the day. And, pigeons are no different. So when they would come home at 10 o'clock at night, little after 10, I would let them eat, drink. Sometimes I turn the lights off a little bit earlier, but I would make sure they all ate and drank. They ate as much as they can eat twice a day. I turned the lights off and they would rest for the evening. Then at 5:30 in the morning, I would kick them out and I'll loft fly them for 1 hour.
So what are some of the longest distances that you've raced your pigeons before?
The longest race we had was 600. And one year, Dunkirk had a 1,000-mile race coming out of Texas. We did ship one bird to that, and we never got him back. But then a lot of guys said they never got the good birds back. So the guy, and a lot of controversy with that race, but we did ship one bird and we never got him back. And I thought we were going to do good with that bird. But the furthest we had was 600 miles in Buffalo.
That's a stretch. Those take some seriously athletic birds to achieve that distance.
Yes. During the year, we had 10 races, 10 old bird races. We had a 3, a 4, a 5, a 5, and a 6. And that was almost right in a row. And that's how we flew 4 years ago. And it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Do you ever send in for the one loft races?
I do here and there, but not much because I'm retired, so I can't afford to dish out all that money. But 2 years, I think it was 3 years ago, I shipped one bird to the Hoosier Classic. I shipped a white. It was out of a good pair that I had, and he had over 4,000 pigeons. Well, anyway, that bird finished the whole season. It didn't win anything, but I was 1 for 1. And I heard about all these guys who shipped 10 birds. You only had 1 or 2 left, or some guys didn't have any. I shipped one and it flew every single race, and I got the bird back. I had a guy stop in here to see me, and he wanted to buy the bird so bad. He gave me an offer for it, and I sold it. And I go, oh, should have never sold that bird. There was a race called the I Race years ago. I've won the I Race, and they had another gold race attached to it. So I nominated my bird to be in both of them. I did win both of them first place. And then the following year, I got 4th and 7th with nestmates in that race.
Been racing for a long time and club racing, and especially with this long distance stuff, and you've seen people coming into the racing world. What would you say is a pretty common mistake that new fanciers are making when they get into racing pigeons?
The biggest mistakes they made is taking birds from everybody. And I try telling people when I give birds to people to help them get started, I don't give them garbage. I give them birds that I can sell online for a couple $100 or whatever. And I go, here, this is all you need. This is all you stay with. And a lot of guys will take birds from people that just want to get rid of them. And then they can't do well after a couple of years of flying. They're last, and they quit.
So you're saying, yeah, just quality right off the bat. Don't try to selective breed your way out of some coals.
I always tell people, if you're going to get into racing, find somebody that you can trust, or somebody in your club that's willing to help you out with good birds, not birds that they want to get rid of. Decent birds that they would keep for themselves to breed and race. That's what you want to start with. I mean, you can't go to Mike Gannis and spend thousands of dollars for birds, because you'll go broke after the first couple of years. But later on, when you know what you're doing with the birds, you get a system going, your birds are doing well, then you can go to Mike Gannis and says, well, I want this bird. Then you can spend money on birds. I mean, that's what I did growing up. I never went out and bought birds right away. I worked with the birds that I had with my father. And after that is when I started buying the birds from Charlie Heinzman.
Was your father a longtime pigeon racer as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it's like generational for you then.
Mm-hmm.
It's in your blood.
Mm-hmm. Big time. I never had a girlfriend growing up because
That's where it all went right there.
I spent too much time in the coop.
Yep. Some of the races that your dad did, that was probably back when they were doing shipping the birds out on trains, right?
No, there was just shortly after that. Buffalo had a truck that some of the members built. They had some very knowledgeable flyers in Buffalo. So they built this trailer, and they put it onto the back of a truck. They installed it on. It was all made out of aluminum, and that's how we shipped the birds for training and for races. And the truck, I think the truck held 1,500 birds, and we would get over 1,000 birds a race. The first race my father won was in 1967. I'll never forget that. The band name was 1374. That was a dark check cockbird in 1967, and he won a 150-mile race with over 1,000 birds in the race.
That's such good participation too.
Oh
That's
yeah,
a lot of birds.
yeah.
So I mean, how do you see the pigeon hobby going forward? Like, what do you think it really needs to be successful and to keep growing?
Oh my God, that's a tough question. I talked to a lot of people, and with all the one off races out there, they said, "What? Why should I spend my time being on the road, spending all this money for gas training when I can send them to a one off race and take my chances with them?" And I, I love training. I mean, to me, that's that's all the fun with pigeon is training. And I would love to go out, train my birds every day. If I couldn't do it, my father would take them and we would help one another out. And that's how we became successful.
The one lofts really do play to the convenience factor, almost like a lottery kind of advertisement towards a lot of the stuff as well.
This new guy that I got started here, he only wanted 2 or 3 pair of birds and he wants to ship birds all over. I go, listen, you're going to need more than 2, 3 pair of birds. You're going to need at least 10, 15 pair of birds. If you, oh, I don't want that many. Well, he made a commitment to get into Louisiana Classic one loft race. He made a commitment to get into the AU race. Then he comes over to me. He goes, "Do you got any youngsters for me to put him?" I go, "Oh my God, I knew it. I told you, you know." So I helped him out. I gave him 12 youngsters, and he's got 2 young kids that got involved with the birds. They love him, and they're with the birds all day. And so when he drove down to Chicago this year to put birds in, he put 2 birds in AU convention race, and then he's got 6 birds in that junior race, 3 birds for each of his kids in there, and then he wanted the bird first, so I gave him a super nice bird for the Louisiana one loft race.
When you see how fun it is actually for the training and doing the releases and things like that, you gotta,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing it with his kids there too. So that's a big part of it right there is just showing the youth too. I always like turning my birds out in public places. Like I'll do it at the Ace Hardware parking lot or the Walmart parking
Okay.
lot, so that way a bunch of people can see and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully talk about it a little bit with some people and show them because yeah, it's always in, I'll call home and have my son say, which one's getting in there first. And yeah, the training is fun.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of fun to see how your birds are developing and coming along and following families and stuff like that.
And when Steve comes over with his 2 kids, they always ask me, "Can I go in the coop and go in the coop?" I let them go in the coop and they handle the birds, they catch them. They, oh my God, they love them that much. So that's why when they wanted to fly the junior race in the AU, I gave them 3 birds each. Here you go, and I basically grabbed a bunch of really good birds and I let them pick out what they wanted. And here you go.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's what it also takes to help, yeah, with the future, giving out good birds, not, garbage.
Oh yeah, I helped out a lot of people through my whole life. I mean, I helped out clubs with their club auctions to raise money so they don't have to pay so much money for shipping. I helped out people that came over here. Like there was a young lady here. Her name was Kathy. She was 10 years old. She came here. She liked to burn the loft. So I go, here you go. It's a gift from me to you. Here it is. And then I met her. Oh my God, about 30, 25 years later. I was showing birds at the Erie County Fairgrounds. She comes up to me. She goes, "Are you John Finso?" And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "You don't remember me?" I go, "No." And then she told me who she was. I go, "Oh my God, Kathy." Well, when I showed all my birds, all my birds won a ribbon. And I won best in show, best champion loft, best reserve bird, everything. And then she goes, well, I want to buy a pair from you. And I told her, well, just take what you want. And she goes, well, I can't take your winners. I go, they're all winners. So at the end of the show, I took two birds and I go, here, two birds from me to you, owe me nothing, put them together. You're going to breed nothing but show winners. Well, she won with those birds from Kentucky to Pennsylvania to New York to Ohio, wherever she was showing the birds, she won. And she was so happy. And we kept in touch for the longest time.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, spark that interest when they're young, and she even, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're coming up against the clock here, but John, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your long distance racing with us and all the tips and tricks. Really appreciate your time.
Well, I hope I helped you out and, with everything I told you. So, and it was a pleasure talking to you as well.
Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help us keep it going, as well as supporting our other pigeon promotional work, head over to our website at PigeonPod, that's pigeonpod.com, and make a donation. We are a non-profit public charity, so once you've made your donation, you'll receive an email with a tax-deductible receipt. If you can't donate today, please help us out by leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen. Any episode requests, upcoming pigeon shows, competition results, or you just want to send a shout out for a club or a friend to be read on air, just email it over to staff@pigeonpod.com. And make sure to check out the one-of-a-kind pigeon t-shirts, hats, and other swag at our website, pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening, and remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons. A great racing team starts long before race day. The loft itself plays a huge role in the health and performance of your birds. Up next, we're talking all about racing loft design and what makes an effective setup. Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Philip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds and this ancient hobby. Today we're going to be talking about racing pigeon loft design with Bill Lima. So Bill, thanks for coming on and talking with us today.
Hey, my pleasure.
So can you give the listeners your own background into racing pigeons?
Yeah, I've been racing steadily since 2011 at this location. I had birds on and off a few times before that. Obviously grew up as a farm boy. I had every animal under the sun growing up, and used to show pigs and cattle and sheep, and had a horse and chickens and pheasants and all the everything, right? So but the pigeons have been the only thing for the last 15 years, and it's a big part of my life. So,
and where is it that you're racing out of right now?
I race out of Guelph, Ontario, which is about an hour due west of Toronto.
And what are the racing club that you're with right now?
I race out of the Flamborough Racing Pigeon Club in one combine called the North Road Racing Pigeon Association. I'm actually the president of that organization. There's another combine that races from the east. It's called the East Course Combine. I've been a member of it for many years as well, and I race with the Waterloo Wellington Club on that course. This year we've started to overlap a little bit, where they have come on with us due to declining numbers on the East Course. They've been coming on for a few of the longer races with us to try to help them out.
And so before we start getting into all the details and stuff like this about racing pigeon loss, let's just clear it up that everyone's in different climates, situations, and things like this. But there's also universal truths when it comes to building and design features and stuff of racing pigeon lofts. So with that, people who are listening and maybe you're working on another loft or something like that, or adjusting features with your own loft, just if you hear something you want to try it out, just take that into consideration. people in a hot climate compared to a really cold or wet or dry. Everyone has different situations. So build your loft somewhat accordingly in that aspect. So for instance, Bill, you get pretty cold winters up there, don't you?
Yeah, we're in a pretty cold climate up here. There's a lot of different systems to flying, especially young birds. Up here, predominantly everyone flies under the darkening system. We simply don't have enough time to put the birds through a light program where you're cutting, maybe 8, 9, 10th flight and shutting the birds down and give that flight time to grow back in. Our racing started this past weekend in one combine. We start next weekend in another, and we're usually finished by the end of September. So a lot of my friends in the U.S., Texas, California, Arizona, they start racing when we finish. So it's a big difference, right? And then of course we have the winter on top of that. So breeding quality youngsters in January when it's minus 20 Celsius outside is a challenge. Yeah, like we said, every location's different. So
Yeah, even to the point where you have almost different racing seasons.
right, yeah.
So first things first, when you're looking at your property, what would be some of the factors that you think about when you're just looking at a blank property? You got your house out there. Where would you first look at your property for putting that racing loft?
Ideally, it's you want to try to get a southeast exposure if you can to try to get the sunlight as much as possible, the morning sunlight. Later in the day when it gets really hot, it's kind of nice to have it on the side or the back of the loft, not directly in the loft. I find, depending on where you are, do you have a clear line of flight in? Do you have buildings in the way? Those are all contributing factors to where you would locate it. Can you put it high in the air? Can you put it down low? I mean, I know some people have second story lofts. They'll have a garage underneath, and they'll have the pigeon lofts up on the second story, and that has some added benefits because if you're heating the garage, then the floor of the loft on the second floor is always going to be a little bit warm, which helps keep it dry. So there's different things to think about, right?
And the other side of it too would be, how do you feel about multiple lofts, like multiple smaller lofts, or one large loft that are sectioned off for like breeding and separating the cocks and hens?
Yeah, I think breeding loft ideally should be separate from your racing loft. But I've had, since I've been here, I've had multiple different buildings for racing lofts. I had the old birds in one section and young birds in three other lofts. And I would fly one loft on one combine in one direction and a different loft the other direction, and that's that's great to keep young birds separate and straight. But then when you want to fly them as old birds and you want to combine them all, I would fight for weeks to break them to the old bird loft. I mean, they could see the old bird loft from the young bird loft and vice versa. At the end of the young bird season, I take all those birds that I'm keeping and I put them over to the old bird loft where they sit in the aviary all winter and they're looking at their young bird loft. And then I let them out in the spring and they go and hang on the screen for 3 weeks trying to get back in that young bird loft. Like it's just brutal. Like a couple of years ago, I lost 31 yearlings to the hawks because they would just pick them off of that, hanging around that loft. They trying to get in there, and it's a nightmare. So I'm a big advocate now of having one racing loft. Ideally, have one trap into a front hallway, and then go left or right. Have sliding doors, pocket doors, whatever you need. You can have your old birds, your young birds, everything traps into the same spot. That you don't have that fight to deal with at all. Sure makes life easier.
Right. Yeah. Work with that natural habit where they want to come back to where they were born. And
Right. You can't punish them for it. They're just doing what you've trained them so hard to do, right?
right. So, and this goes back to climate and stuff like this, but what kind of floors do you prefer in your loft setups?
Well, again, here in this climate, because of the cold, we pretty much have to have a plywood floor.
Yeah.
Pretty much have to have everything closed up. I visited lots of guys in the southern states, and they're all up on expanded metal, wide open floors, and lots of air, and that's great. It has downfalls too we can talk about, but yeah, here when you're darkening, you need basically a pretty solid loft. You got to be able to close the windows off and darken it down so that they only have 8 hours of daylight a day. Doesn't really matter when that 8 hours is. You kind of can work that around whatever your personal schedule is. My shop is only 5 minutes from home, so I have the luxury of coming back and forth 2 or 3 times a day if I want to. So what I tend to do is I'll take them out of the dark noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and they'll go to bed with natural light, and then I close the loft up so that in the morning when when the sun's up, it's darkened. It stays darkened until I come home. It doesn't really matter when, but 8 hours a day for about 8 weeks is kind of the minimum to put them through the proper darkening system. And that's inherently there's a lot of problems with that. The biggest problem with darkened loft is ventilation. Obviously, if you're closing everything off and closing the light off, you're also closing off a lot of the airflow. So you really got to think about how you're building the loft to try to minimize the restriction of your ventilation. Especially if you're closing the loft off and you got the sun beating down on it, it's hot inside, and they're locked up like that until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You got to keep air moving.
So what do you do to keep air going through when you got everything blocked off?
I have a fan up in the attic space. In the front wall of the loft, I have about 18 inches of perforated metal that runs the length of the bottom of the front wall, and it's a double layer. It's on the outside of the stud and it's on the inside of the stud, so that pretty much stops the light from coming through the perforation. And then in the ceiling, right up against the front wall, I have sliding panels in the ceiling that I can open and close, right? So I can control the amount of draft that comes through that front wall. And an interesting thing too is even in the evening when I go in there when the loft's not darkened, you can sometimes go in there, and depending on what's going on outside, you can actually feel cold air coming down through the ceiling. So then it's important to be able to close those shutters off in the ceiling to control the air. Big thing to keeping birds informed, I believe, is to minimize the temperature fluctuations between day and night. And I think that's a big downfall that a lot of the southern lofts have. They normally have very warm days, probably very warm evenings as well, overnight. But for example, I was at the Gulf Coast Classic several years ago, and it went down to, I think it was 42 degrees Fahrenheit the weekend of the final race. And I'm visiting guys' lofts, and it's like, guys, you're losing all the form on your birds right now because you don't have any system in place to close off that floor, right? The cold air is just coming in, blowing around, and so those are all things to think about when you're in a different area. If I were to build a loft in the southern states where I had the luxury of having it up on expanded metal flooring, I would definitely have some sort of a panel that I could lay on the floor at night in the racing loft to try to minimize that temperature fluctuation.
Yeah, that big drop. So you were also talking about that expanded flooring, some of the other downfalls that you could run into having that. What were some of the other problems that would come about having that?
One of obviously predators is an issue. Raccoons and weasels, and a little weasel can squeeze through the smallest of spaces, right? So you've got to find the right size perforated or expanded metal flooring that keeps them out, but still lets the droppings drop down through. If you have the luxury of putting the loft up, 4 or 5 feet in the air, then of course you're not going to have a problem with a raccoon reaching up through and grabbing a bird or something, or there's things like that. I guess another issue they have down there that we don't have is snakes. I often read of some friends in the States that get these rat snakes or whatever in the loft and eating baby pigeons and stuff like that. Well, we don't have that situation up here. So it's not a consideration. But yeah, different things every place, right? So
Yeah, that's the snakes have been in. I'm in Arizona, so we get a lot of snakes, and that's been something that every breeding season they'll just come through and decimate eggs and babies, and so we're trying to bury quarter-inch mesh and bring it up 2 feet, and so yeah, snake proofing is pretty tough too, and that's
right.
another thing too with the lost predator proofing. And I've seen pictures where a bird of prey will actually get into some guy's loft sometimes, and then
Hmm.
the mess they can cause so much devastation when they get in there. What do you think would be a good way to help keep BOPs out of the loft?
I had one great horned owl in my loft one day, um, and surprisingly, it didn't really cause any damage. I think he was as upset with himself being in there as I was with him being in there. The birds, of course, were all freaked out. They were all hanging on the wire, but he was just standing on the feeder, just calmly standing there looking around. And I'm a welder by trade. I went in and put my safety glasses on and put my big leather gloves on, and I thought, okay. I went in with a broomstick in my hand, and I thought, okay, I'm ready, right? And I just literally opened the door and just gently nudged him out. I was actually touching him like on his chest, right? And he was just looking at me with those big eyes, and then he saw the door was open, and away he went and never came back. So he must have followed a late pigeon in, in the evening, didn't see the bobs or whatever, just followed it in, and boom, right there it was, right? But yeah, Cooper's hawks, I've had a couple of them in the loft. And yeah, same deal. They just went right through the bobs, and that's another issue. So I don't think there's really any way of preventing that from happening, other than, get your birds in and close it off so that nothing can get in or out, right? But
Let's say you have a property that has an open area or a treat area. Would you put it more towards the open area, or would you put it more towards the trade area?
I would pick the open area for sure.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, especially most of these. I mean, we don't really have too many peregrine falcons up here. Not in my area, but not in Ontario generally. There's not a lot of them. Cooper's hawks are the number one threat up here with a bird of prey, and they're typically an ambush bird, right? So they like to sneak out of the trees and scoot, just over top of something and ambush. Whereas the peregrine just, peregrine bears down on you and you're done, right? And interesting too. I've heard people say that the birds somehow know if it's a peregrine. My buddy Ken, he says when the birds see a peregrine, they land in the big cedar trees. Because they know the peregrine won't dive into the tree. Whereas if it's a Cooper hawk, they fly. They'll because they know they can generally outfly the Cooper, right? They won't go in the tree because they'll get ambushed, right? So it's unbelievable how the bird knows the difference.
It makes sense. They've known each other as predator
Yeah,
and prey for a long time, so
right.
I
Yeah,
guess that they would. You're using the wood floor in there. Do you use any kind of a deep litter system, or are you just going in there and scraping it out every now and then?
I've done a couple of different things. This year, I did a deep litter system. I hate looking at the loft, but I can honestly say that the health in the loft has been very good. Young bird sickness goes hand in hand with darkening. It just, you're darkening the birds, they're young, they're still growing, you're forcing them through a body mold, you're closing off the ventilation, you're restricting the daylight, and that devil's going to come. That young bird sickness seems to come. So I've got lofts where I have I have a 2x6 floor with plywood on the bottom side, and on the top side I have wire. And I did that so that when the birds get young bird sickness and they're throwing up, and they're, other birds can't run over and eat that grain because it drops down through. Definitely seems to have helped. But like I say, this year I tried the deep litter system, and kind of by accident, actually, is I did some breeding in one of the young bird lofts. I had about 12 pair in there, and I let them raise 2 rounds, and I left the youngsters in there with them. And and then when I pulled them out, I pulled the breeders out, I left all the young birds in that section, and I left all the nest bowls and everything just the way it was when breeding was over. I was just really busy. I didn't have time to get in and clean it. And I thought, okay, well, it's all dry. I'm going to try this and see what happens, right? And no young bird sickness, none.
Oh, wow.
Is it coincidental? I don't know, but it's definitely an interesting observation. So
You can design a loft well the first time, and if it's designed well, if it ventilates well, you're just saving yourself a lot of headaches when it comes to birds getting sick from, improper, they're getting wet or whatever, or yeah, old food sitting around for them to eat.
dry is paramount. You got to minimize, any water getting in the loft through rain or snow or whatever. You got to minimize that as much as possible. I think that's a big key. If it's dry, it's healthy. And as terms of building, be careful what wood you use too. I mean, it's really hard to get any dry wood anywhere, but definitely don't use treated wood. Pressure treated stuff. It's got an odor to it. It gives off. It takes a year for that stuff to really dry out and that odor to be gone. Cedar's a big no-no, right? Cedar's not good for pigeons. And I remember reading a story one time about that where some pretty well-off fella built himself a beautiful loft entirely out of cedar and couldn't figure out why his birds were so sick. And some other club member came over and come over to see if they could see what was going on. And as soon as they saw the loft, they're like, dude, this is what's wrong with your pigeons, right? You can't build, you can't put pigeons in the cedar loft. They get sick from it, right? So again, it just gives off this odor that's not healthy for them. Painting's another thing. I don't like painting lofts, right? Inside, I think I like it just to be bare. So, but yeah, for the guys that are in the southern states, you look at a lot of the big one loft races, they're steel frames, they're steel floors, it's like a steel structure. It'll last forever. Maybe they do that because they're in, Tornado Alley. I don't know, but it's definitely, you can get in there and pressure wash it all off, and that's an advantage to that. Whereas you can't really do that so much with wood, right?
So with your breeding loft, so you actually have a separate loft then for your breeders outside of for your racers?
Yeah, I actually have when I bought this place, there's a 30 by 30 garage, and I built individual breeding pens inside the garage. I love the individual pens. Again, air quality is a problem. In the wintertime, it's cold. I got a furnace in there. I keep it at 45 degrees Fahrenheit just to keep, stop the water from freezing and whatnot. Don't want it real warm, but yeah, it's minus 20 outside. You get more humidity than you like. You can't really change the air that often. I mean, I'll open the door up every day for a few minutes and just let the air change, because you got to warm it back up again. But it's not ideal for sure. There's a little saying up here about May babies go all the way, right? And everybody. Everybody tries to breed those early birds in January and even December, so that you can barely get bands on them January 1st. And I've done that, and it's interesting. They're like kids, I think. If you don't get them out on the landing board when they're 45 days old and get them going in and out of the trap and get them doing their little flutters, their little fly around, little circles and down the driveway and back up. And I've done that. I've had my insulated coveralls on and my big woolly hat, and I'm standing out there with a broom watching for hawks, right? And get those babies, going. If you don't do that, I think they just get stupid. They get lazy. You miss that opportunity. It's probably like, taking a child and not sending it to kindergarten and grade 1, 2, and 3, and then just popping it into grade 4 when it's 10 years old and expect it to be able to learn, right? It's missed that part where they just soak it up, right? So I hate late breds. It's always just a chore. You've got your main team, you got them going, you got them training, and then I got this group. I had this year. I had a couple guys who brought me some youngsters that were late. They were, May babies. Got them here in June. Just because we start racing so soon. It's like, okay, what am I going to do with these things? I got to get them going. They weren't even kitted up flying yet. And I thought, okay, I'm taking them down the road. I took them 2 miles away, right? And 30 babies, okay? And I chased them out, and one of them flew right into a tree. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to see you again. But the other 29 went up, and they're flying all over the place. And it took them all day to get home, one at a time. But by the end of the day, I had 29 birds home. And the next day, I took them back to the same spot, and it took them a couple hours to get home. And I took them to that spot about 6 times, and then they were beating me home, right? So that's 1 week gone. And then I take them 5 miles, right? And again, takes them a couple hours, and they all came together in a group. Tossed them there a couple times. Then I went 7 miles a couple times. Then I went 10 miles a couple times. And then I went 20 miles. And then I went 40 miles. Well, now those birds are caught right up. And it's like, I would never do that with my early bred team. We're so careful with them. We take them, because you don't want to lose them, right? But when you get those late breds, it's like, yeah, I don't care if I lose you or not, because I don't need you, right? But they react so good, so well, really. They're not darkened either. They're just natural, and I find natural pigeons will always fly better than a darkened pigeon. Again, I think they get kind of lazy. They're going through that body mold. They don't want to fly really so much because they're really loose in the feather, and it's hard to keep the weight off them because they're darkened up, and they're already 3 months old, by the time you start letting them out. Yeah, just different situations, right? So
What do you think is like a more common mistake that you see someone who's just getting into racing pigeons? What do you think the most common mistake is, whether it is like loft designs or just coming into the sport?
I think the biggest mistake that most guys, I mean, all of us are guilty of, is overcrowding. Guys have said over the years that the loft will tell you how many pigeons it should have. And it's kind of interesting. Like the one loft that I have is 6 by 16. So it's 96 square feet, right? An important thing too is to build it just over your height. You don't want a loft with an 8-foot ceiling, so the bird's gonna fly over your head. Like I'm 6'5", maybe 6'4", and now I'm shrinking a little bit, I think. But the inside of my loft is 6'6", right? So that loft has 72 box perches in it, okay, along that 16-foot wall. So I think, okay, I can put 72 birds in there. Well, every year I end up with about 45 to 50 birds is the right number, right? And if I only put 50 birds in there, I don't lose any. But if I put 70 in there, I'll lose 20 of them until I have 50. Right? And I've done that test a couple times where I've just started, okay, I'm only going to put 50 birds in this loft, and I go to the first race with 48 pigeons. But if I put 70 in, I go to the first loft with the first race with 48 pigeons. Right? So that's an important consideration. The more space you can give them, the better.
Because I've heard numbers like a square foot of pigeon, which just seems crazy to me. I mean, what would you say? I mean, so off of the numbers that you said, you're giving your birds a good amount of space there.
2 square feet, right? Like, I figure if I got 48 pigeons times 2 square feet, that's 96 square feet, which is exactly what that loft is, right? So that's pretty much what it is 2 square feet. And again, maybe in a southern climate where you've got an open floor and everything else, maybe you can put more than that in. I don't know. I can't have no experience with that regard, but I know up here when the lofts are closed off, that seems to be the magic number. One thing I wanted to mention, that little conversation we just had about the late breds, you watch a lot of these one loft races that guys send birds to, and a lot of these races keep the birds locked up for 3 or 4 months before they let them out. I just look at what happens here with these late breds when I push them like that, and I wonder if a lot of these big losses we see in one loft races aren't a result of that same situation where the birds aren't getting out and getting that kindergarten training, when they should. And I understand it's hard, like, unless they have it set up in a way where they can take 1 month's worth of entries and start letting them out and getting them going. And then, it turns into an all day project for them. Right. But I think there's a lot of comparisons there to think about.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, though. They miss out on that really early development on learning.
I always kind of thought if I'm going to send to a one-off race, I want to send early so that the birds got a chance to mature and develop an immune system. And after watching this, I'm kind of thinking, you know what, maybe it's better to send them late so that they don't get that opportunity to get lazy, and if they get sick and die, because they're too young and everybody else is too old, well, so be it. But I kind of wonder if the ones that are there won't be better off. Again, that saying up here about May babies go all the way. I mean, baby born in May will be flying 350 to 400 miles at the end of September. They do it.
We're coming up against the clock here, but this has been a really interesting and fun talk. And Bill, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to have met you and talked about things. So.
And we'll do it again sometime.
Okay, have a good night.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help us keep it going, as well as supporting our other pigeon promotional work, head over to our website at PigeonPod, that's pigeonpod.com, and make a donation. We are a non-profit public charity, so once you've made your donation, you'll receive an email with a tax-deductible receipt. If you can't donate today, please help us out by leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen. Any episode requests, upcoming pigeon shows, competition results, or you just want to send a shout out for a club or a friend to be read on air, just email it over to staff@pigeonpod.com. And make sure to check out the one-of-a-kind pigeon t-shirts, hats, and other swag at our website, pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening, and remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons. Finally, we'll wrap things up by taking a look behind the scenes of a racing pigeon club. Racing is about much more than just releasing birds. There's a lot of work that goes into organizing races and keeping a club running smoothly. Here's that conversation. Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Philip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds in this ancient hobby. Today we're going to be talking about the operations of a pigeon race club with Joshua Hayes. Joshua got into pigeon racing from his grandfather around the age of 10 years old. He is the current president of the PRO, the Pigeon Racers of Oklahoma Club. So Joshua, thanks for coming on and talking pigeons with us today.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the club that you're a part of, how many members you guys have, and how long it's been going for?
So we currently have approximately 30 members right now, and this club has been around probably since the 60s. From everything I've heard, it's been around for a while. They used to ship pigeons on the train, from what I understand, way back in the 60s or 70s. They used to give them to the conductor, and the conductor would take them, however far, and let them go. Back in the day when we didn't have live weather tracking, we got let go. But we've been around for quite a long time. I think we've changed names a couple times. We were the Sooner Club at one point in time. There was several clubs that combined together, and eventually we became the Pigeon Racers Oklahoma. I joined back in the very early 2000s with my grandfather. We got to see a bunch of cool stuff go on over the years, which led us to here.
Nice. So I'm guessing your grandfather was a member as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he used to race quarter horses, and my grandma made him quit. So we were looking in the newspaper one day, and he saw pigeon racing, and it struck him pretty hard, reminiscing back in the racing days of quarter horses. So we went to the seminar at the Oklahoma City Library. That's what got us started. I think the AU, Dion, was one of the people there, and there was another club member from our club that was hosting the seminar at the library. There was a bunch of people there. I think we were the only ones, maybe one other person that joined at the time. That's how we got started.
How does the membership work? Like, do people have to live with a certain knowledge of each other for you guys to be doing releases and keeping it somewhat fair and equal?
So at one point in time, when there was a lot more active members, we had a circumference around downtown Oklahoma City. You had to live within like 25 miles, give or take, something like that. And as time progressed and the sport shrank, we kind of been forced to accept members outside of that circumference just to, help cover cost of shipping dues and just keep people interested. I think currently at the moment we're spread roughly 75 miles apart from each other from our furthest flyers east to west, I think is our furthest spread. But we try to accept as many people as we can, and we get a bunch of people who are far enough away we can help locate to like the Tulsa club, or I think Ardmore has a club that we, help them get in contact with them whenever they show up. 'Cause we do a bunch of outreaches on Facebook. We've had a lot of success with that, getting new members to join, but they're from all over the place. They can be, I think we got contacted from people in Kansas, but we just try to take pretty close to Oklahoma City, within 75 miles. But we try to just to keep it fair, like you said, 'cause if you get too far out, prevailing winds kind of make it difficult to keep it fair.
And so, how do you guys go about coordinating and scheduling your races? Do you do it like for the year and you just kind of stick with the date based on weather? Is everybody kind of, because of where they're located at, get a say in where the releases and stuff are?
Yeah, so it's easier for us to go north and south. So we have I-35. So we swap back and forth north and south, and that seems to keep it pretty fair. And we determine our race schedules in the winter. We have a winter meeting and a summer meeting, and we schedule old birds and young birds in the winter meeting. And then we kind of follow up and make any kind of small, minute changes in the summer. Start date primarily, depending on how hot it is, because we try to start the first, second week of September. That can change depending on how long our 100-degree temperatures carry into September or in August. Kind of makes it hard to get them trained all the way when it's 105 degrees outside at 10 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And so you guys are affiliated with the AU. Does the AU
oh
require
yeah.
you to have certain timing systems? Like, does everybody use benzene, or do you guys use something different?
So it is per club. You get to Each club gets to choose what kind of timing system they use. There's not a lot of options out there, a handful. I think, we got Benzing, Unicon, Recon. Those are the three that I'm more what top pigeon. We started getting top pigeon clocking systems in. We have like 5 or 6 members in a club who have that particular one. The rest of everybody is Benzing. We have a couple others that use Brecon. We try to accept a plethora of clocking systems. It's hard on our race secretary because he has to, use all three of those to try to configure results. But I don't have a lot of experience with E wind speed, but from what I understand, it's not super difficult, just time consuming with all the other clocking systems. But Benzing's our primary one. Most of our members have. We really like the live results. You almost guarantee the winner from when the pigeon shows up. All of us sit in our houses and watch the computer screen to see, who clocks birds first, and a lot of us are on the phone with each other, talking to each other as the races progress. It's pretty fun.
Nice. Do you guys have a central clubhouse?
No, we don't. I know other clubs in the country do. We're very fortunate to have one of our members let us use his property that we ship birds at, and the trailer's located there, and we all meet shipping night and set up our tables and our clocking systems and enter the birds in the race at his house. And then the hauler comes and gets the trailer and takes it on from there and then returns it after the race.
How large is the trailer that you guys use?
It is 15 feet long, if I remember right. It's a single axle trailer, it's all aluminum. We got it from a company in Monroe, Wisconsin, if I remember. Dave's Welding and Fabrication is the name of it. They built it years ago, I think back in 2010, 2013, I think is when this one was made, if I remember correctly. But it's pretty light. It holds, I haven't seen it maxed out. And I think we've had 560 birds in it at one point in time. That's the most I remember in a particular race. And we still had a little bit of room left over. We had several crates that didn't have any birds in them. So
Wow. Any idea on how many birds that thing can actually hold then?
700, give or take. If I were willing to bet, because I think we had 4 or 5 crates that were empty on that race. So, but other clubs have a lot bigger ones.
Oh,
I
there's
think.
always a bigger fish, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you guys have a member that kind of he takes care of keeping the trailer there, and I'm guessing he keeps a lot of the crates and everything there as well.
Yeah, all the crates remain in the trailer. We combine with another club in Enid, and they have their own crates that they've purchased, and we swap them out. They'll meet the hauler, or they'll come to the shipping location, shipping night, and will pull crates out of the trailer, and they will insert theirs. They'll take those other crates back home. That way, come next week, they can load their birds into those and bring them and swap them again. And we used to combine with 2 clubs a couple years ago, one in Elk City and one in Enid, and I think combined like 13 flyers is what it added. So we would have 2 separate. We would have our pro club race, and then we would have what we call the Big Red Combined results.
So let's talk a little bit about the overall growth of your club. Has it been growing? Has it been declining? As the members that you have in the club, are they pretty active?
Yeah, we have a pretty good portion that's pretty highly active. We've been very fortunate to grow the past couple of years. I think we've added probably 19, 22 members, something like that, over the past couple of years. We've gotten very fortunate with one of our members being pretty active on Facebook, posting ads on Marketplace. He's had really good luck with that. We've added probably 6 members this year solely off of that.
So he's posting ads on Marketplace, like
On Marketplace, yeah. Like where you would sell random stuff, there's all kinds of stuff on Facebook Marketplace. But he would post an ad like, are interested in racing pigeons, yada yada,
oh, okay.
and had pretty good luck getting people that way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really surprised. I didn't think about that at all. I think he heard about another club somewhere in the country doing that on Facebook or something. YouTube, I think he saw a video where some other club was doing that. So we put a couple ads up and had pretty good luck with it. We suggest that to other clubs across the country. Post a ad on Facebook Marketplace. It helped us quite a bit.
That's pretty smart. Yeah, if it works too, keep doing it.
Yeah. There's also groups. We have a couple of groups here in Oklahoma, Facebook groups. Oklahoma Pigeon Breeders is one of them. We posted an ad or put a post on there on that group years ago and had 5 or 6 people join that way. Facebook has been a very good tool in adding members here recently.
Any good tips or advice for engaging the existing members that you have to keep them active in the club?
We try to do fraternity races. I think that keeps things interesting. We do a fraternity race and a band race that kind of inspires competition. We all try to we have an awards ceremony every year where we get together and we give out silver dollars to the winners of our races, and we all meet at Johnny's Charcoal Broiler. We all eat, bring our families. We try to go out after shipping night to go eat at Brahms or something like that. We try to, invite everybody to come and have a good time. I think that helps out quite a bit. Camaraderie helps keep everybody pretty interested, pretty active. That seemed to help out quite a bit. That's what I remember as a kid going going out after shipping night to have fun with all the guys. Or unfortunately, with these new clocking systems, now that it's all over the internet, you don't get to go to. We all called it, banging off our clocks, because the old clocking, the old ones where you had to wind up with a key, they would all bang those off at. We all met at a barber shop years ago when I was a kid, and that was fun because everybody would meet, Sunday evening, and we would all hang out and talk about pigeons and the race and everything. And but now that we got these new electronic clocks, they kind of antiquated that. So
That's a really interesting point right there, though. Yeah, because of the new clocks, that really kind of took away the social or the need for the social aspect of getting together, having the clubhouse, because
right,
or at least a gathering spot. For you're still doing it, I guess, to get everybody banded and set up. But the day of the
right.
race, that's when everyone's kind of rushing back, and yeah, that's really interesting.
It's a double-edged sword.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Because it is pretty cool to be able to, especially with watching them live, like you're saying, and you're still, like you said, you're still calling each other up, and you know,
yeah,
still like that, I guess.
yeah. I think trying to be pretty social is pretty important. So there's got
Right.
to be several people in the club that try to reach out to everybody to help, you know, make everybody feel wanted.
Do you, or maybe the club as a whole, do you guys ever use any of the Loft management apps or software like that, or just the clock systems?
I've tried to use the loft management on benzing. It's pretty not user friendly. Um, so, and I got a small loft, so I just mainly keep written records. But other people, I think, use it. I know other people use. That's my mind, but there's a couple people in the club that use it.
I just saw one in the Racing Pigeon Digest, and I was looking that one up online. The Loft
Right.
management software that they use there.
That's probably the one that they're using, if I were willing to bet. But I'm small. I only have, a handful of breeders, so I keep everything written in a notebook.
So let's talk a little bit about like one loft races. And do you or any other club members in your club, do they enter in one loft races?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There quite a bit of them. I say the majority enter one loft races. Some a lot more than others. Some enter a lot of birds. Some only enter a handful. I know we have several local ones here. CBS, Continental Breeding Station, they have one. I know a lot of people in our club, that might be the only race they enter to help support CBS. And there's a couple others around us that they enter in. I haven't entered any in a few years. One loft races are, I think, that side of the sport is growing, whereas club racing, I think, is shrinking. It seems to be more popular because of how spread out everybody is. It seems to be a lot more popular just to go with the one loft races than to race against people that you're 55 miles away from.
Interesting though that you say the majority of the members in the club are doing one loft races. So I mean, do you think that there's like a real competition? I mean, or in some ways, is one helping the other, or do you think that one is hurting the other?
I don't think that they're competing against each other. I don't think one's hurting. I would say they're helping each other, because I know at the end, these one loft races, not everybody takes their bird. So there's a lot left over sometimes, and they're willing to a lot of times help new flyers with them. I think Paul Daniels was talking on when he was on your podcast, and he would use them in his old bird team.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I think it helps the sport. I don't think it's, helps club racing. I don't think it's negative. I know a lot of the birds that do well in those one loft races tend to do pretty decent in club races.
Yeah, it's the same. Come back and do well in the other ones. Yeah.
Right. It's not always the other way around. A lot of birds that do well in club races don't always do great in one loft races from my point of view vicariously. So, because I haven't entered any really to speak of. So,
So, what do you think some of the biggest challenges are facing your club specifically, but even just pigeon racing clubs together here in the States?
membership. I think that's the biggest obstacle. Because when you have enough membership, you can pretty much do all kinds of stuff. We've had to shorten a lot of our races. We used to fly a 600-mile race. We no longer fly it because that's the most expensive race you fly cost wise. And when you're short on membership, you're trying to cut your costs on stuff. So it inhibits how far distance you can go. Or I know we fly a lot of 200-mile races because cost wise, it's more effective for us than to fly multiple 300-mile races. So now that we have more membership, we can kind of adjust our schedule and lengthen races and move races around. But when we're, only having 10, 12 people flying, you kind of have to be cognizant of that. I know a lot of real small clubs fly mainly sprint races, from what I understand, just because they can't afford to go long distances. So membership is everything in a club. The more members you have, the healthier your club is, the more you can do.
Someone who's never even had pigeons before, if they come into your club, like how do you guys have something set up for, because we had a guy on here before and he was kind of getting into racing and he was like, what kind of loft do I build? And they're like, man, whatever, turn that building into a loft, it doesn't matter. And he was kind of discouraged by that, like, do you guys have something set up for if somebody is totally new into pigeons, wanting to get into a race club and compete in that way? Like, how do you handle something like that with a new member?
So we suggest there's a bunch of people in the club that we suggest he go to get ideas for lofts. Um, we try to bring them around, several members, look at their lofts. Several members in the club close to him will try to help him build or give as many suggestions as they can. That's been what we've done in the past, is a bunch of people in the club try to help all they can, kind of mentor them. That's been what we've done.
Do you guys have any juniors in your club?
No, no, we haven't had any juniors in a long time. It seems like as more years progress, the least interested the youth is in these kind of things. Unfortunately, when I was a kid, when I first joined, I think I was the only junior member in the club at that time.
Where do you think the pigeon club racing, how do you see that going on in the future, the next 5, 10 years? What do you see that looking like?
Hopefully, it grows. I'm hoping a lot of these clubs adopt similar tactics, adding members on Facebook. But the zoning restrictions, there's a lot of neighborhoods that don't allow birds, pigeons and chickens and stuff like that. That hurts us quite a bit. I think all the clubs are going to have to be pretty spread out. I think that's what we're looking at. That's the direction I think it's going. I think one loft races is going to play a bigger part the longer this sport exists.
Does your guys' pigeon club have any big plans for the future?
We are going to host a Texas Center show in the second weekend of December at the Norman, I think it's Cleveland County Fairgrounds. We're going to have a show at that time, kind of like a fundraiser. I'll send you more information. That way you can, because I think you put that kind of stuff out on
Yeah,
your podcast.
that was at the
Norman, Oklahoma. I believe it's Cleveland County Fairgrounds.
Yeah, send me some info about that. So, are you going to be going to the Texas Center Summer Convention in Tulsa this year in July?
Yeah. Me and several other club members will be going to the convention since it's close. I think several of our club members go to it wherever it is, but since it's close, I'll be heading up there.
Okay. Have you been to one of their conventions before?
I have not. It's always been far enough away during summertime to prohibit me from going there.
Yeah, so that'll be the Texas Center of Pigeon Racing. They're going to be having a convention in Tulsa, Oklahoma, July 9th through the 13th. You can just look at their website, txcenter.org. They have a lot of information on there. So, and the one that you guys are going to be hosting, you're going to be hosting the Texas Center of Pigeon Racing's convention in December?
No, we're just hosting a preliminary show.
Oh, okay. This would be your own show.
In December. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a Texas Center sanctioned preliminary show. So we'll have Texas Center judges. We'll have an auction as well. So we've gotten several donations from across the country that we're super grateful for. And we'll also be hosting this. Well, we won't be hosting it. Best Pigeon auction will be hosting our auction online. So we'll have a live auction as well.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, doing it online really opens it up for everyone who can't travel. That's a real smart way of doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if anybody wants to learn more about this racing club, they are on Facebook, Pigeon Racers of Oklahoma Club. You can find them there. Check out some more information. But I want to thank you for coming on, Josh, and talking all about the ins and outs of your guys' pigeon club. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. We truly appreciate your support. The soundtrack for the show comes from the pigeon musician Vital Mizraim. If you have a topic or a guest you'd like to hear more about in future episodes, or if you yourself would like to be a guest and just talk pigeons, please don't hesitate to reach out to us through email at allaboutpigeonspodcast@gmail.com or join our Facebook page, All About Pigeons Podcast, and connect with us there. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you listen. It supports the pigeon hobby and really helps the show. Remember, together the hobby thrives, support each other, and enjoy your pigeons.